Rate my story from 0 to 10 and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. Water trickled across the marble floor as she scrubbed each corner with precise, silent movements. Her calloused fingers gripped the cloth firmly, but her eyes shone with a light that contrasted with the simplicity of her worn clothes. The 30-year-old cleaning lady had learned to be invisible in that imposing mansion, gliding through the hallways like a shadow no one bothered to notice. But today was different. Among the cleaning supplies in her cart, an old book of classical philosophy caught her attention. During her allotted 15-minute break, she hid behind the heavy drapes of the library and devoured each page with an intellectual hunger she had never been able to fully satisfy. The other house staff watched her with thinly veiled disdain. The housekeeper, a middle-aged woman with a sour face, whispered to the other maids that a simple person like her would never understand such elaborate words. Laughter echoed through the corridors when they thought she couldn't hear, but she pretended not to notice the taunts and continued immersed in her secret readings. 2 years ago, her life had collapsed like a house of cards. Everything she had built with so much effort had unraveled in a matter of weeks, forcing her to accept any available job to survive. The mansion of the wealthiest family in town became her refuge, but also her gilded cage, where she had to carefully hide every fragment of who she really was. The sound of hurried footsteps made her look up from the book. A 16-year-old boy was descending the marble staircase with a look of despair on his face. The only son of the mansion's owner had always been known for his rebelliousness and disdain for studying, but at that moment he seemed genuinely distressed. He stopped before her, hesitating for a few seconds before approaching. His blue eyes, inherited from his father, carried a vulnerability that contrasted with his usual arrogant demeanor. The cleaning lady watched as he held a crumpled paper between his trembling fingers, clearly struggling against his wounded pride. Why would a cleaning lady be reading philosophy, he wanted to ask, but something in her serene expression prevented him from sounding condescending. Instead, he swallowed his pride and whispered that he desperately needed help. The text he held was incomprehensible to him, but he had to present it in school the next day, and his grade depended on it. She hesitated, looking around to make sure they were alone. Agreeing to help him could bring complications she couldn't afford, but something in the boy's vulnerability touched her maternal heart. In a soft voice and simple words, she began to explain concepts that seemed impossible to unravel. The transformation was immediate. The young man's eyes lit up as she translated the complex ideas into accessible language, using everyday examples that made everything seem crystal clear. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely interested in learning, discovering that wisdom could be beautiful when presented with patience and love. In the following days, he began to seek her out regularly, always with the excuse of needing help with his studies, but in reality seduced by the unique way she saw the world. An unlikely friendship blossomed between them, something that did not go unnoticed by the watchful eyes that inhabited that house. The 30-something widowed millionaire watched the radical change in his son's behavior with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. A man of striking appearance, with features reminiscent of a classic movie heartthrob, he managed a business empire built through shrewd investments in the stock market, accumulating a fortune that even included holdings in Bitcoin and other digital assets. His wealth was known throughout the town, but the connection with his own son had always been a mystery that tormented him. For 16 years, he had tried every possible way to get closer to the boy, hiring the best private tutors and offering every imaginable opportunity, but nothing had worked as well as the simple presence of that woman. Intrigued, he decided to discreetly investigate the influence that the cleaning lady exerted on his heir. He began to observe her during her daily routines, noticing details that others completely ignored. The way she held the books revealed familiarity, not casual curiosity. Her movements were too graceful for someone who had always worked cleaning. There were mysteries in that woman that defied his first impression. During his observations, he realized that she possessed an extraordinary intelligence disguised beneath her simple appearance. When she thought no one was watching, her eyes scanned the library shelves with knowledgeable intent, and her explanations to his son demonstrated an erudition that left him increasingly fascinated. The weeks turned into months, and a subtle tension began to grow between them. Casual conversations in the hallways became more frequent, glances lingered longer than necessary, and small moments of unexpected closeness created an electricity in the air that both pretended not to notice. She continued to play the role of the ordinary worker who needed the job to survive, but she felt her heart race whenever he appeared. He, in turn, fought against feelings he considered inappropriate, questioning how a woman seemingly so distant from his world could stir his emotions so much. The situation became complicated when other employees of the mansion began to notice the special attention that the boss devoted to the cleaning lady. Motivated by jealousy and prejudice, malicious whispers began to circulate through the corridors, creating a toxic atmosphere that threatened to destroy the peace she had so sought in that job. The rumors spread like wildfire. The housekeeper, with her venomous smile, fueled the gossip with seemingly innocent comments during the employees' breakfast. She said that it was strange how the boss had started circulating more around the house, always appearing in the places where the cleaning lady worked. The other maids nodded in agreement, creating increasingly elaborate theories about her true intentions. The tension in the air was palpable when she entered the rooms where other employees were present. Looks of suspicion and whispers that stopped abruptly when she approached became part of her daily routine. The environment that had previously been merely indifferent now pulsed with ill-disguised hostility. Realizing the change in atmosphere, she began to work even more silently, avoiding any unnecessary contact that could fuel the rumors. When the millionaire appeared in the hallways, she lowered her eyes and pretended to be completely absorbed in her tasks, even if her heart pounded every time she heard his footsteps approaching. He noticed the change immediately. The woman who had previously exchanged a few polite words with him now practically fled from his presence. Her movements became quicker and more evasive, as if his mere proximity was something dangerous that should be avoided at all costs. Frustration grew within him, mixed with genuine concern for her well-being. One rainy morning, while she was cleaning the library windows, his son appeared with more questions about his studies. As always, she stopped her work to help him, patiently explaining history concepts that seemed impossible to grasp. The boy hung on every word, fascinated by the way she managed to make the past alive and interesting. The millionaire watched them from afar, leaning against the doorframe, admiring the infinite patience with which she treated his son. There was something maternal and yet profoundly intellectual in the way she conducted the explanations, using expressive gestures and creative analogies that kept the young man's attention completely focused. When she noticed his presence, the embarrassment was evident. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she apologized for taking up too much time with his son, promising to resume her work immediately. He tried to assure her that everything was fine, that he was happy to see them studying together, but she had already retreated back into her protective shell. The situation worsened when the millionaire's sister paid an unexpected visit. An elegant and ruthless woman, known for her influence in the most exclusive social circles of the town, she held very firm opinions about the place that each person should occupy in society. Her own fortune, built through investments in international funds and holdings in gold, gave her the authority to question her brother's decisions. During lunch, served in the main hall with all the usual pomp, she commented casually on the rumors that had reached her ears. She said that some malicious people were spreading stories about her brother's supposed interest in a house employee, something she considered not only ridiculous, but potentially damaging to the family's reputation. The millionaire felt his blood boil, but he maintained his composure. He denied any basis in the rumors, explaining that his only concern was his son's academic progress, which had improved significantly in recent weeks. She smiled condescendingly, suggesting that perhaps it would be better to hire a professional tutor to avoid future misunderstandings. After his sister's departure, a heavy silence hung over the mansion. He knew she was right about one thing. The rumors could harm not only his reputation, but mainly that of the cleaning lady, who depended on that job to survive. The responsibility of protecting her from malicious gossip weighed on his conscience. That same afternoon, the housekeeper called the cleaning lady for a private conversation in the administrative office. With a fake smile plastered on her face, she explained that she had been informed about certain irregularities in her behavior. She said that a competent employee should focus exclusively on her tasks, avoiding unnecessary distractions that could create problems for the harmony of the house. The message was clear. Any approach to the family beyond the strictly professional would be interpreted as an attempt to obtain personal advantages. The veiled threat of dismissal hung in the air like a sword about to fall. She listened to everything in silence, with an impassive face. But inside her heart was breaking. Desperate to keep the job that represented her only source of income, she made a painful decision. She began to work voluntary overtime, arriving earlier and leaving later, always avoiding the times when the family was present. When the young man sought her out to study, she made up excuses about urgent tasks that could not be postponed. The boy was confused and hurt by the sudden change. During dinner, he asked his father why the woman who helped him with his studies was being so elusive. The millionaire did not know how to explain without revealing the complexity of the situation, limiting himself to saying that she was probably too busy with work. But he himself suffered from the forced distance. He caught himself making up excuses to circulate around the house at the times when she worked, just to glimpse her focused face or hear her soft voice answering some question from other employees. The attraction he felt for her grew proportionally to the impossibility of expressing it. One morning, while she was organizing the books in the library, she found a specific volume about the history of the region's rural properties. Out of curiosity, she began to browse it during her break, discovering old photographs that showed the evolution of the mansion over the decades. One of the images made her stop and examine it more closely. The house, in its original form, much smaller and simpler, was identified with a family name that seemed strangely familiar to her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she turned the pages, looking for more information about the former owners. What she discovered left her breathless. Historical documents indicated that the property where she now worked as a cleaning lady had belonged to her own family several decades ago, before being lost in circumstances that the records did not fully clarify. The revelation shook her certainties about her past and created an unexpected connection with that place that she considered only her workplace. As she processed this disturbing discovery, she did not realize that the millionaire had entered the library silently. He watched her for a few minutes, noticing how she held the book with reverence, her eyes scanning each line with unusual intensity. When she finally noticed his presence, the surprise and vulnerability in her face revealed more than 1,000 words could express. The silence that settled between them was charged with an almost palpable tension. She closed the book quickly, as if she had been caught doing something forbidden, but he had seen enough to realize that it was not about casual curiosity. Her eyes were moist, and her breathing irregular, signs that those pages had awakened something deeply personal. He approached slowly, not wanting to scare her even more. He asked gently if everything was okay, if she had found something interesting in the property's history book. She hesitated for a long moment, struggling between the desire to share her disturbing discovery and the need to maintain the barriers that separated them. In a choked voice, she admitted that she had found information about her own family in the old records. She told how her grandparents had vaguely mentioned a property lost decades ago, but she had never paid attention to the stories that she considered only the nostalgia of elderly people. Now, holding the evidence in her hands, she needed to confront a reality that completely changed her perception about that place. The millionaire was genuinely moved by her vulnerability. He sat beside her on the leather armchair in the library, maintaining a respectful distance, but offering a comforting presence. He said he understood how difficult it must be to discover family connections in such an unexpected way, and offered to help her investigate further details about what had happened to the property. For a few precious minutes, the social barriers that separated them completely disappeared. They talked like two people who genuinely cared about each other, sharing thoughts and feelings without the usual constraints. He spoke about how he felt disconnected from his own family history, despite all the inherited wealth, and she revealed fragments of her past that she normally kept locked away. The intimacy of the moment was interrupted by the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Instantly they both moved away, and she resumed her professional posture, pretending to be just organizing the books on the shelf. The housekeeper appeared at the door with a suspicious expression, claiming to be looking for the cleaning lady to give her new cleaning instructions. In the following days, he couldn't get that conversation out of his head. He decided to use his influence and financial resources to discreetly investigate the history of the property and her family. He hired a private investigator specializing in genealogy, instructing him to find out everything about the former owners and the circumstances in which they lost the land. Meanwhile, she struggled with conflicting feelings. The discovery about her family had created an emotional connection with that place that went far beyond just being her workplace. At the same time, the growing closeness with the boss aroused sensations that she tried desperately to suppress. Every casual encounter in the hallways made her heart race, but she knew that nurturing such feelings was a recipe for disaster. The millionaire's son, sensing the tension between his father and his informal tutor, decided to take the reins of the situation. With the typical innocence of a teenager who believes he can solve adult problems, he began to create situations where the two would be forced to interact. He would pretend to need help with school assignments at specific times when he knew his father would be around, or he would invent small accidents that required the presence of both to be resolved. During one of these orchestrated situations, the boy purposefully knocked over a pile of books in the library, claiming that he needed to find an urgent reference for a project. While she helped him rearrange the volumes, the millionaire appeared to see what had caused the noise. The three ended up working together, and for the first time in weeks, he could again observe the extraordinary way she explained complex concepts to his son. The admiration in his eyes was impossible to hide. He was completely fascinated by her intelligence, by the infinite patience with which she treated the boy, and by the dignity she maintained even in the face of difficulties. When she realized that she was being watched, the blush that rose to her cheeks only intensified the attraction he felt. That night, alone in his office, he received the first report from the investigator. The information was disturbing. Her family had indeed lost the property, but not due to debts or financial problems, as the official record suggested. There was evidence that they were victims of a conspiracy involving forged documents and bribes to local officials, orchestrated by a group of investors who wanted the land for real estate development. The injustice committed against her family decades ago deeply angered him. His own family had acquired the property in good faith a few years later, without knowledge of the questionable circumstances of the original sale. But now that he knew the truth, he felt a moral responsibility to try to somehow repair the damage caused. During the following days, he was even more attentive to her, offering small gestures of kindness that did not go unnoticed by the other employees. He brought fresh flowers to the environments where she worked, claiming that they improved the aroma of the house. He ensured that she had longer breaks to rest, instructing the housekeeper not to overburden her with extra tasks. These special attentions intensified the rumors among the employees. The housekeeper, increasingly outraged by the situation, decided to take drastic measures. During an afternoon, when the millionaire's sister was making another of her visits, she sought out the influential woman and shared her concerns about her brother's inappropriate behavior. The sister was furious. She confronted her brother that same night, accusing him of becoming romantically involved with an employee, something she considered not only socially unacceptable, but potentially dangerous for the family's reputation. She threatened to take drastic measures if he did not immediately put an end to any improper relationship. The discussion was overheard by the cleaning lady who was working on the upper floor. The cruel words about her humble origins and the insinuations about her supposed self-serving intentions hurt her deeply. She realized that her presence in the house was causing serious problems for a family that, regardless of everything, had offered her work when she needed it most. Overcome by guilt and the desire to protect him from further embarrassment, she made a decision that tore her heart apart. She wrote a simple letter, communicating her decision to leave the job voluntarily, claiming to have found a better opportunity elsewhere. She left the envelope on his desk and quietly withdrew from the mansion in the early morning hours. When he found the letter the next morning, he felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath his feet. He ran through the house looking for her, but it was too late. The other employees confirmed that she had left before dawn, taking only a small suitcase with her few personal belongings. The son was inconsolable when he learned of her departure. He accused his father of having done something to drive her away, shouting that he had ruined the only good thing that had happened in his academic life. The boy's words echoed in the millionaire's mind like stabs, because he knew there was a painful truth in them. During the following weeks, the mansion became a dark and silent place. The young man returned to having difficulties in his studies, completely losing interest in learning. The millionaire tried to focus on business, but his thoughts always returned to the woman who had disappeared from his life as abruptly as she had arrived. He used all the resources at his disposal to find her, hiring private investigators and using his network of contacts, but she seemed to have vanished completely. With each day that passed without news, his anguish grew, mixed with the growing certainty that he had lost the only person who had managed to truly touch his heart. 3 months had passed since her departure, and the pain of absence had not diminished in the least. The millionaire had exhausted all conventional resources to find her, but it was as if she had disappeared from the face of the earth. His private investigators always returned empty-handed, reporting that no official record indicated where she had gone after leaving the mansion. Life in the house had lost all color and vitality. The son remained embittered and rebellious, blaming his father for the departure of the only person who had managed to spark his interest in studying. During the silent meals, the boy cast accusatory glances that cut the millionaire's heart like sharp blades. One rainy autumn afternoon, while he was reviewing the investigators' reports for the 100th time in his office, he received an unexpected call. On the other end of the line, a young male voice identified himself as an alumnus of a prestigious university in the capital. The young man explained nervously that he had recognized a former professor working in a modest diner downtown, and something about the situation had bothered him deeply. The millionaire's heart leaped when the young man described the woman. Brown hair always tied in a simple bun, expressive eyes that revealed an unusual intelligence, and a natural dignity that contrasted with the humble environment where she now worked. There was no doubt that it was her, but the revelation about her academic past left him completely shocked. The alumnus told a devastating story. She had been one of the most respected professors in the philosophy department, known for her exceptional ability to make complex concepts accessible to students. Her academic reputation was impeccable, built over years of dedication and brilliant research that earned her national recognition. Everything changed when an envious colleague, motivated by competition for a tenured professorship, forged evidence of academic plagiarism against her. The accusations were so well crafted that they even deceived the university investigators. Her career was destroyed overnight, her reputation ruined publicly, and she was fired in the midst of a scandal that dominated academic headlines for weeks. The alumnus explained that he had always believed in her innocence, as had several other students who had been deeply impacted by her teachings. Recently, new evidence had emerged proving that the accusations were false, but she had disappeared before they could contact her to communicate the discovery. Seeing such a brilliant person serving tables in a diner had broken his heart. Without losing a second, the millionaire wrote down the address and drove off towards the capital. During the 2-hour drive, his mind seethed with conflicting emotions. The anger at the injustice she had suffered mingled with an even greater admiration for her strength and dignity. He finally understood why she possessed that extraordinary wisdom and why she had hidden behind the identity of a simple cleaning lady. When he arrived at the diner, he found her exactly as the alumnus had described. She wore a simple uniform and served the customers with the same gentle patience that she demonstrated when teaching his son. Even in that environment, her posture maintained a natural elegance that distinguished her from everything around her. She saw him before he could approach. The shock in her eyes was evident, followed quickly by a palpable fear. She tried to avoid him, hiding in the kitchen, but he waited patiently until the end of her shift. When she finally came out the back door, he was there, leaning against his car, with a bouquet of flowers in his hands. Tears began to stream down her face before he even said a word. Months of longing, pain, and loneliness overflowed at once. He approached slowly, offering the flowers with a tenderness that made her completely collapse. Between sobs, she tried to explain why she had fled, why she could not allow him to compromise himself with someone like her. He interrupted her gently, telling everything he had discovered about her past and about the injustices she had suffered. He said that the alumnus had contacted not only him, but also other colleagues and academic authorities. New evidence had conclusively proven her innocence, and the university was desperate to find her and offer a full redress. More importantly than that, he confessed his feelings with a brutal honesty that left her breathless. He said that he had fallen in love not with the humble cleaning lady she had pretended to be, but with the extraordinary woman she really was. He explained that his wealth and social position completely lost their meaning without her by his side, and that he had spent the last months understanding that true love transcends any artificial barrier created by society. She tried to argue about the differences between them, about the problems that a relationship would cause, but he silenced her with a kiss that contained months of repressed longing. When they separated, he whispered that he did not care about other people's opinions, that he was willing to face any prejudice to be with her. In the following days, he helped her get back in touch with the university. The academic authorities not only offered reinstatement with all rights, but also significant financial compensation for the damage caused. The colleague who had forged the evidence was publicly exposed and fired, while she was welcomed back as a heroine who had survived a grave injustice. The return to the mansion was triumphant. The millionaire's son exploded with joy upon seeing her, running to hug her as if she were a long-lost mother. He had saved all the books she used to read, waiting for the day when he could return them personally. The housekeeper and other employees who had spread malicious rumors retreated in embarrassed silence. The millionaire's sister, confronted with the truth about who she really was, had to swallow her prejudice and accept that she had judged an extraordinary woman based only on superficial appearances. The revelation that she was a respected academic, victim of a cruel conspiracy, completely changed everyone's perception of the relationship. During an intimate ceremony in the mansion's library, surrounded only by family and closest friends, he asked for her hand in marriage. The same room where she had discovered the connection with her ancestral family became the setting for their engagement, symbolizing how destiny had conspired to unite them in a way that transcended coincidence. She accepted with tears of happiness, knowing that she had finally found a man who loved her not despite her origins, but because of the upright and courageous person she was. The ring he offered her was simple and elegant, without unnecessary ostentation, reflecting the genuine love that existed between them. The story of their romance spread through the town like a modern legend about the transformative power of true love. People who had once judged them began to admire the courage they had both demonstrated in defying social conventions in the name of their authentic feelings. A year later, during the wedding ceremony held in the gardens of the mansion that now legally belonged to both of them, she looked at the man she had chosen as her partner and knew that all the difficulties had been worth it. His son, now her official stepson, served as ring-bearer, radiant with happiness, to see two people he loved finally united. At the makeshift altar under the ancient trees, as they exchanged vows written by themselves, the millionaire promised to honor not only the woman she was, but also the journey of overcoming that had transformed her into the extraordinary person beside him. She promised to share with him not only her happy days, but also her wisdom gained through suffering and resilience. When they kissed as husband and wife, sealing a union that had survived prejudice, separations, and injustices, the guests applauded not only the couple, but the victory of love over all the adversities that had tried to separate them. The sun set on the horizon, painting the sky with golden colors that seemed to bless the beginning of a new life built on solid foundations of mutual respect, admiration, and true passion.